Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Let's fire the breaking news sounder for this one, boys. A rare emergency live edition of Purple Daily here, presented by our friends at TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. TCL is all about providing great TVs for you to watch TJ Hockenson catch passes from Kirk Cousins. Get the flag, Judd.
There we go. I'll just playing with it.
Wow.
TJ Hockenson.
The Vikings have made a trade. And to finish that shout-out to TCL, they deliver the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. TJ Hockenson to the Vikings is the breaking news here. Welcome live to the Purple Daily YouTube channel, emergency episode. So here's how this works. The Vikings give up a 2023 second-round pick and a 2024 third-round pick. They get back TJ Hockenson, who's under contract. The Lions exercised his fifth-year option for like $9 million next year, so you got a year and a half of him. Also could just extend him, which is my guess is that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And then the Lions will kick back a 2023 fourth-round pick and a 2024 conditional fourth-round pick. What are your initial thoughts on this splashy move by Kwesi?
Well, first of all, I love it because it's a definite sign that this team is realizing that they are in the midst of a special year and that this provided a really good opportunity to address at least one spot of need. I think the clarity here, too, also came because the Vikings have been working the phones for a couple of weeks now, but I think the clarity came when Irv Smith, who, to call a spade, has been a disappointment, suffered a high ankle sprain while he was blocking on Sunday. And so, he's been hurt so much now. I wouldn't be surprised if he was going to miss a month. And if you look at the depth chart at this point, besides my guy, Johnny Munt, they were very depleted at tight end. This now gives them what I guess I had hoped Irv was going to be, which was the real pass-catching threat at tight end. This guy was drafted in the first round, 8th overall by Detroit. I love the commitment here. I love going for it. And I think if you are Kevin O'Connell, you have to be very pleased because I would expect that Hockenson will be sort of a pseudo tight end / receiver.
Yeah.
He's not going to give you necessarily a deep threat, but he is going to give you far more of a threat than you are getting consistently from that spot. And that's something that the Vikings can use. I like this move a lot.
There's so much to unpack here. It's a move for now. It's funny because we've been talking the last couple of weeks about what's the philosophy going to be here. If you want to get wide receiver help, or let's just say, pass catching help in this case, for 2022, you're going to have to take eggs out of the draft basket for 2023 or 2024. Do you want to take future assets off the table and put them on the 2022 craps table, if you will? And you look around the NFC and it's like, yeah, there's only 5 teams above 500. One of them's the Seahawks. Do you believe in them? Another one's the Giants. To what degree do you believe in them? There's only a small handful of teams that are really competing. I think the Niners jump into that mix at some point. Maybe the Rams bounce back, but your window after the 6-1 start to do damage this year and to play a home playoff game or two is open. And so I don't know that they went in saying, week 1, we're going to be aggressive at this year's trade deadline. But as the season has played out, and Irv Smith getting banged up again a couple of times, right, with the thumb injury and now the high ankle sprain, this is the last year of his contract. They had issues at that position just going into the year. And long-term, Irv's contract's up anyway, so that's a position they've been looking at. Wide receiver, I think we've seen in the last month and a half, outside of Justin Jefferson, they don't really have anything else explosive. Thielen is not the same guy. He's been banged up, still reliable in the red zone, but he's not the number 2 that he's been for the majority of his time here. And KJ Osborne hasn't stepped up into that official number 2 role here. And so it just became very evident, even though they started 6-1, that they really need more help catching passes and at tight end specifically with the condition of Irv Smith. So this makes a ton of sense. And the other thing I love about this, TJ Hockenson is a former 8th overall pick who has not yet been maximized in Detroit. I mean, who has ever really been maximized in Detroit outside of maybe Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson? And this is a guy that just a few weeks ago against the Seahawks caught 8 passes for $179 and 2 touchdowns. Like, that guy exists. We've seen flashes of what TJ Hockenson can do as a pass catcher. And I like that Kwesi is saying, you know what, let's make a bet on this year's team, probably extend him because he has a contract coming up after next year. You could extend him. He's in his prime. And let's buy low on a guy that probably hasn't reached his peak potential as a former number 8 overall pick.
Right.
Makes sense.
Now, if I can just briefly, not to be a buzzkill, but considering that the Twins' deadline deals have been wrought with injured pitchers.
So, you really think you're suited to be the 4th guy in our group, Buzz Killington?
And I have often felt silly for saying, oh my God, Tyler Maley's going to be fantastic. And then he grabs his arm, okay? TJ Hockenson is dealing with a knee problem, but he played against the Dolphins on Sunday. He was taken off the injury report, it sounds like late last week. And he has also dealt with hip and foot issues. I am going to assume that the Vikings doctors got a look at his medicals, though, and cleared him, okay? But, I mean, I've just been guilty the last, 3 years of Twins trades of being like, this is a great trade, and then it's like, no, he's hurt. So Hockenson does have some physical concerns. I'm hoping the Vikings doctors have the ability, though, to say, no, those aren't concerns.
Yeah. As long as they
now.
Googled TJ Hockenson injury, which is a step further than the Twins front office.
Which is what I just did. I just wanted to say, I wanted to see before I get, but yes, I love what he can potentially bring. And I think the disappointment of Irv Smith is now sort of erased with this one and giving them an option at a position at which, God bless Johnny Munt, you really didn't have that option through Sunday.
Trying to see to the draft, obviously, because the season's still playing out. So the draft order for next season won't be set for a very long time. But Greg Rosenthal pointing this out on Twitter saying the Vikings didn't even truly give up picks to get Hockenson. They just traded down 2 rounds in 2023 and 1 round in 2024.
Yeah, technically they have the same number of picks. They just moved back, right?
Back a little bit, yeah.
And so they moved back in 2 different rounds in 2 different years, and they get TJ Hockenson. So in terms of volume of picks, yeah. And I think like last year, the Vikings actually, and it might be different draft to draft, but the Vikings actually viewed kind of like the late first round to early second round almost flat in value across to like the 4th round. So they might be saying, well, I mean, 2nd and 3rd round picks swapping back for 4th rounders, and we get Hockenson. We're not giving up that much footing in the draft. I will add this on Hockenson. So he currently ranks number 1 in the NFL among all tight ends in yards per reception this year. He's averaging 15 yards per reception. And all Vikings fans, you've seen enough games against the Lions. Like he's a guy that you've seen because he's played the Vikings like 7 times or whatever it is in his career so far. Mm-hmm. So I'm not breaking any news here, but this is a 6'5" target for the red zone too. That's not something to sleep on. Like Irv Smith has never really been a red zone threat for the Vikings.
Yeah.
And I know your guy Johnny Munt caught a touchdown pass, but that was more him being schemed open.
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson's the type of guy that doesn't necessarily need to be schemed open to catch a touchdown pass. He just puts those giant 6'5", those mitts up in the air in the back of the end zone. And the Vikings are already one of the best red zone teams in terms of touchdown percentage, but he gives you, once you get inside the 20, like you are on TJ Hockenson watch inside the red zone.
Right, and I'm not sure what his exact PFF separation grades are, but my guess too is because Thielen has slowed down. I mean, he still has great hands. In fact, I don't think he has dropped a pass that's been thrown his way this season. But that being said, if Thielen gets hurt and can't play, which is certainly plausible, this now does continue then to give you a red zone target to replace him as well. I like the fact that the Vikings appear to be capitalizing, or attempting to, I should say. They appear to be attempting to go after this because they see where the conference is at. They are 6-1. This is where we get frustrated with teams when we think they're assuming that success is going to come in 2023, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is an aggressive move that certainly doesn't mortgage the future, but gives them an immediate impact player. And there are a lot of places that this team going into today's trade deadline had opportunities to get impact pieces that weren't going to cost you a boatload.
Yeah. I mean, one thing we know about Kwesi at this point, that dude is not afraid to make trades, right? Wow. And I'm sure there's going to be ways
too.
At some point for him to recoup some value if he wants to, but this is it. Like, you have a window right now. You can't just stick by whatever you thought your window was before the season. I'm sure going into the season, they said, year one, we have expectations, but really year two is when it's all going to come together even more so, right? Cousins in the second year of the system, KOC in the second year. You're going to have Christian Darrisaw going into his third year. Like, everything seemed to be kind of pointed toward they might take a step forward in 2022, but 2023 is kind of that. I mean, that was Sean McVay. Well, McVay had a 13-3 season the first year, but there's a lot of evidence of like second, third year jumps. But they adjusted on the fly and said, you know what, we need help right now.
Yes.
So a second round pick, whatever. We're gonna give up a second round pick. Do you think they gave up? What's the value here to you guys? I mean, are you guys? I mean, they basically gave up. They got value back because they got fourth round picks back. So they gave up a second round pick, but got value back for TJ Hockenson.
I think you can move around the draft. I mean, unless you give up your first round pick, which does get a little bit dicey potentially. No, I think when you have an opportunity to go for it, here's my guess, just from the scuttlebutt that was going around. I think the Vikings went into this process fully intending to try to make a trade. I think last week it was receiver until Irv Smith got hurt. Tight end, though, was near the top of that list. And I think the Vikings were shopping a third round pick.
Yeah.
And then like a fifth round pick. And I think at the end of the day, when Detroit said, we want your second, but we'll also compensate you with 2 more picks back, they said fine. And so, yes, in this case, I think the trade, again, assuming that the medicals are fine, that the doctors know what they're doing, I think that this is the type of trade where Kwesi probably gave up a little bit more from a second round pick than he wanted, but was kept happy by the fact he got 2 picks back.
Yeah.
Make yourself better right now. Why wouldn't you do that? If the cost is to get yourself better and it's the, let's call it the 50th overall pick in the second round of the draft or whatever it is where the Vikings would be, I'll do that. I'll give up the 50th overall pick if it means I'm getting a top 10 tight end who can stretch the field. He had a monster game against Seattle earlier this year, like 8 catches, like a $172 and a touchdown. The dude is a freak. And the Vikings haven't had an impact tight end. Irv Smith is a jack. The idea of Irv Smith being a theory of this next level to his game doesn't exist. They have a legit now other deep passing option for Kirk Cousins, and TJ Hockenson's that guy, man. I would do this trade most times. I don't think you should be too afraid of giving this up, and especially too if he's locked up. I know he's for $9 million next year. You could potentially work out a new contract to smooth out that cap hit. I think this is a really good trade for the Vikings.
I do want to clarify something. He is not a deep threat, so this does not solve the deep passing threat. He is an intermediate threat.
Yep.
But in terms of like productivity and what tight ends can do, he is averaging the most yards per reception. But throughout his career, he's averaging like 2 receptions of 20 plus yards in the air or more per season. So he's not. If you think you have a deep threat problem, that problem still exists now.
Yes. Unless
Unless you think that TJ Hockenson taking up intermediate space helps free KJ Osborne or something to be a deep. I mean, KJ ran like a 4.4 and 4.45 40 in college. I've wondered if he could be a deep threat more than he has been. It hasn't come to fruition yet. Or is there another trade on the table somewhere? Would they make a second trade for a weapon? I feel like this is probably it. But it's something to
3
keep an eye on.
o'clock though, right? 3 o'clock Central Time. So the clock is ticking, but it's still there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them make another move that's not huge. Like these trades aren't going to be like, oh my God, you had to give up 2 or 3 first round picks or something. I would not be shocked to see them make another move. I think what this does is I think this solves 2 potential things. One is Irv Smith's out. You were depleted at tight end. And just to be completely frank, you had nobody that you could really trust to catch the ball at tight end. You do now. The second thing is I do think that in some ways this takes a step towards being Thielen insurance. Because this guy can catch the ball. He's not going to be super fast, but he is going to be a threat in the red zone. Like if you think about Hockenson's skill set and Thielen's current skill set, it's not that he doesn't provide a threat, but yeah, the down the field thing is very intriguing, and I wonder if they would consider to sniff around for that potential.
Yeah. Yep, the train's coming down the tracks, Zolgad.
Oh, the train is right in my backyard, and you know what? Quazy's driving it. And O'Connell, he's right up front there as well.
Holding the flag.
He's
holding
right
the
up
flag.
there as well. There goes the train. Hi, Mr. Train. There it is. The flag is flying. TJ Hockenson, Iowa. Pipeline of tight ends. Can't hate Iowa.
By the way, we should mention here, too, it's kind of crazy. We're just sitting here in the middle of a Tuesday right now, and we got thousands of people hanging out with us on a rare live edition of Purple Daily, an emergency edition. The Score North shop, the Purple Daily shop, is open as of yesterday here. scorenorth.com/shop. And you can get your Before I Die, just one Before I Die hoodies, your Victory Monday hoodies and T-shirts, Purple Daily hoodies and T-shirts, and some Score North hats and beanies. Scorenorth.com/shop. We have opened the merch store here just in time for a big Purple acquisition, boys.
That's exactly right. And don't forget, TJ Hockenson's first game, guess what? We can all welcome him to town on Sunday.
So he's eligible. He's eligible.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He'll be playing with the Purple in Washington, but Mackey, Declan, and Judd, we will all be at first round, located inside the Mall of America, first floor, for a watch party in which we are going to cheers Surly Beers, Before I Dies, Furiouses, have a great time, hopefully watch TJ catch a couple of touchdown passes, and then do a post-game vent line located right inside Nickelodeon Universe, first floor, MOA. Join us there. It will be a great time, and we'll talk about big trades that the Vikings have made.
Yes, we'd love to meet as many of you as possible, so definitely don't be shy. Come on up, cheers one with us, and then stick around for the live edition of Ventline, like Judd said here. Well, I'll ask the obvious question we haven't really gotten to here, but if this is the move here, so TJ Hockenson is and it is a big move, how much better are the Vikings? How much more confident are you in getting to like 12 wins, 13 wins, whatever it is? How much better are the Vikings right now than an hour ago?
I think Kevin O'Connell now has more options, which I like because he has certainly shown that the more options that you give him from a schematic standpoint, the more he will take advantage of them with creative play calls. Like, I mean, we are, again, to repeat what I said on the Monday PD show, we are seeing, I think, the Vikings' most creative offense since Green's days here. I mean, Ticey didn't do this. Childress, unfortunately, didn't. Zim didn't. Dennis Green, I think you got to go back to then to find out the last time that a play caller and probably more importantly, a head coach utilized what he could. And I think Hockenson, beyond being just a receiving threat, which the Vikings were trying to find at tight end, I think he also provides the element of creating more confusion for opposing defenses, which I absolutely love. I like the message this sends from a Quasi standpoint, from an O'Connell standpoint. I like the fact that this sends a message of when we have an opportunity, we're not going to like poo-poo it and be like, oh yeah, it's a nice year, but wait till next year. That they are making moves to actively improve a team where I believe windows in football should never be taken for granted. When you have health,
agreed.
When your team is playing well, and I don't care that they're winning close games. They're winning games. They're 6-1. I don't think you ever in football say, yeah, but you know what? Just wait for 2010, because we did that once. That was a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be easy to say, oh man, you gotta be careful, no, don't be careful. This is the lesson the Twins need to learn. And they kind of tried this year, but they wind up trading for, of course, like a bargain bin injured pitcher who gave them nothing down the stretch. But like this is, yes, take advantage of open windows. And I saw someone, I think it was Seifert from ESPN.com. It's not really an all-in trade. You didn't trade a first-round pick, and like Declan said earlier, you didn't trade you didn't like give up the number of picks. You still you're trading 2 picks You're getting 2 picks kicked back. They're just lower value picks, but they're still in the first 4 rounds. And you're getting, I would say, a rock solid tier 2 pass catching tight end. He's not on the Travis Kelce or George Kittle or like Mark Andrews level, but he is a rock solid tier 2 pass catching tight end that will now get to play in a much more, I think, welcoming, innovative offensive system that could potentially highlight certain things that weren't highlighted in Detroit.
And I know Kevin O'Connell is a master with that deep red zone area where he's been really good this season. And look, Johnny Munt is the reaper of the benefit on that touchdown and on Sunday against the Cardinals. But now you don't have to worry about, oh God, who am I going to scheme open on the tight end? Who's going to be over here on the line with me to try to spread the field and make things easier? TJ Hockenson makes things a lot easier when you're in the red zone now too. So just having more, athletic freaks in this offense, that's great for Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips and Kirk Cousins. So I think this is a great trade for the Vikings. Yeah, their offense is taken, I think, a little bit more seriously when you look at it at every starting position right now. If you went from quarterback down to offensive line and wide receiver, tight end, etc., it's a pretty damn good offense, man. From personnel standpoint, that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah. I'll answer my own question by saying they are definitely better than they were an hour ago. I don't know if it's like a full win better. But it just, Justin Jefferson is the only really explosive, reliable target here. Adam Thielen is good, not great anymore, and KJ Osborne's been underwhelming. I think Hockenson kind of slots in as like your second best target now. Is that a hot take? Is it disrespectful to Thielen? I think he's 25 years old.
Yeah, I think
he's 6'5".
I think they're different right now. I just think that if Thielen goes down, Hockenson can play a large role in making up for that production. But I just think that this adds an element for Kevin O'Connell that he probably lacked. And I do like this too. As high as I was on this kid, and I know he got hurt too. I like bailing on Irv. Like at some point in time, just saying, you know what, it's not going to work.
It's not working. He's banged up all the time.
Yep.
It sucks. And
I like that. That's a proactive move that I applaud, especially in a season like this.
Yeah. And even when he was healthy, I don't. Yeah. Do you remember like an Irv Smith game?
No.
Was there an Irv Smith game?
Philadelphia. He dropped that
the
touchdown pass. That's the game I remember, unfortunately.
Yeah,
that was a big disappointment.
The idea of Irv Smith never really became a reality. Now he could still come back from the high ankle sprain, and now you'll have a second interesting or tight end target. He could still factor in at some point later in the season.
And I think I think Hockenson qualifies as the exact type of target that Kirk Cousins loves.
Big, reliable hands, baby.
He's not really downfield, but he sort of is. Potential for yak. Like there's because he can lumber. There's potential for yak here.
The lumbering is going to be a big factor here. Yes.
I lumber.
We know.
He's quicker than me.
We know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I lumber from room to room in my house.
I wonder if this means that the Lions are going back into another rebuild.
I think Dan Campbell's gone. Oh,
man.
This is an awful year.
Yeah, it is a disaster for them. I'm going to pull up. I think they have this updated on. Did they transfer his contract over yet? I'm going to see Vikings salary cap. Because one thing to consider here, too, is TJ Hockenson. Mm-hmm. So he's making nothing this year. His cap hit this year is, well, I guess technically it is a $5 million cap hit. They're going to have to find some money. I'm sorry. His cap hit's down to it's $500,000 this year. And so next year it jumps in the 5th-year option to $9.3 million. And right now, among players currently under contract, that would be, let's see here. Like the 6th or 7th highest cap hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It'd be like the 9th highest cap hit on the team. Kirk Cousins, Eric Kendricks, but there's no more guaranteed. They can get out from underneath that
unless they pushed some of that to make this work. So Phil, what contract site are you on? Because
over the cap.
Okay, it's weird because I'm on TJ Hockenson's personal page for his salaries, and the cap on here for 2022 is $6.5 million.
Okay, So that makes more sense because it's been like he was an 8th overall pick. So I don't know. It's possible over the cap is just like adjusting things on the fly right now.
Okay.
So it's likely. But for next year, so they're no matter what, they're probably going to have to do something with some contract this year.
Yeah.
Which Rob Brzezinski is excellent at.
I'm sure they've reworked. So I think with Kendricks, you could push some of the money down the road. Now, that might mean it's tougher to jettison him. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, I think that they were probably a trade like this. My guess is there's at least one, if not two, corresponding moves contractually.
Yeah, Hockenson. So they added him on Spotrac. So his contract for next year is going to be one of the 10 most lucrative contracts to the cap. But then he's a free agent. So you could sign him to an extension and then adjust that cap hit in 2023. Because, again, he's 25. You could sign him to like a 5-year deal. Like he's a good, reliable player in his prime. But right now, I believe, according to this, the Vikings are over the salary cap by about $9 million for 2023. Mm-hmm. So they'll have some work to do. But there's some easy ones here. I mean, you're probably going to have to say goodbye to Eric Kendricks. You might have to say goodbye to Dalvin Cook or something, but you can figure it out.
I'm not too concerned about that right now. Not when you got a chance at 6-1.
Also, too, another thing to add here, like the Vikings are old in some spots. They're old with Harrison. Like defensively, they've got Harrison Smith over 30, right? Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks, even Za'Darius is 30 years old now. Patrick Peterson. But on offense, Darisaw, young. Brian O'Neill, pretty young.
The line's in good shape.
Yeah, Ezra Cleveland. These guys are like 26 and under. Ed Ingram's having a hard year, but he's a rookie. Yeah, Jefferson is young, third
Osborne
year.
Potentially.
And now TJ Hockenson's 25 years old.
Yeah, no, it's
so the core of your offense and some of these weapons and offensive linemen are all like nowhere near the age of 30 at this point.
KOC very happy today.
He should be.
This just made his job. I don't know if easier is the right word, but it gives him the ability to be more creative now.
Get the
Johnny
flag.
Munt. We all love Johnny Munt, but Johnny Munt, he don't get the flag waved for him. TJ Hockenson does. TJ Hockenson. There it is.
Amazing. So emergency episode. We have another full episode coming out today. We kind of made room for, they might make a trade. We'll do an emergency episode, but we did our Vikings rankings. And so all that's going to be available on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Please click subscribe if you haven't already, and the podcast feed. Just any quick final thoughts here on this emergency live edition, TJ Hockenson trade edition.
Kwesi, bravo. Bravo to being aggressive. I believe that as GM of the Vikings, he has now made more trades with division rival Detroit than any other team because he made the draft night trade as well. But I applaud this. I applaud this because I feel like we have been critical, although it's not happening as much as it once did. We have been critical before of Minnesota sports teams that don't take advantage of opportunities. And there's no question at 6-1, this team has an opportunity, and this trade is very much an acknowledgement to that. We would have questioned them if we had gotten on here tomorrow and they hadn't made a trade. So I think it's fair to praise them for being aggressive.
Yeah, bleep those picks, man. I'm okay with this if it makes your tight end group and your offense better. And TJ Hockenson, I think, is going to thrive here. So I love that Kwesi Dopamenta isn't afraid to do trades in his own division either. I always hate that myth. Oh, they'll never trade. They'll never do a trade in their division. Why would they do that? They'd have to see him twice a year. Well, is he a good player that can help your team? Why wouldn't you do that? So I love that Kwesi had the stones to do that. It's a great trade for the Vikings.
I love the trade. I don't know why the Lions would do this. It's so Lions and so stupid. The more I think about it, Hawkinson's 25. I guess maybe they just don't want to extend him, but he's going to play for at least 5 more years at a high level. It's so weird.
As long as he doesn't show up on crutches, I love this.
Maybe there's a degenerative knee issue that we'll find out about later.
Stop.
For cap clarity, Will Raggets from SI says his cap hit is less than $600,000 for the rest of this season.
Okay.
So for the Vikings, right? So maybe the Lions had to eat some cap with some bonuses, or I don't know.
Okay.
And so they really don't have to do anything to get, because they had like $1 million in spare change lying around, so they don't have to alter any contracts.
And we just got more clarity from Schefter on Irv Smith. He is expected to be sidelined 8 to 10 weeks. with a high ankle sprain.
Irv
So-
Smith.
Irv Smith. But I mean, so they basically said we have to find a tight end. So Irv Smith's Vikings career, I think, is essentially done.
Yeah.
10 weeks is quite a stretch.
Injuries, and it just never. I guess it would have been interesting to see more of like an injury-free version of Irv, but that's part of football. He's like, availability is a
Always
trait
said,
that
right?
you need, right? Yep. By the way, there are some. I don't know that this is tied to the Vikings, but Brandon Cooks is not at Texans walkthrough practice right now. You don't think Kwesi would also trade for a deep threat?
Can you fit him
veteran
in now
Brandon Cooks?
contractually?
Well, his cap hit's like $24 million or something, isn't it? So you
Right,
have to
but
do some. I don't even know how you would.
To the point of this, I guess my question is for the rest of 2022, what's his hit? Because now it basically is in progress. So you don't have to pay for the first
That's true.
8 weeks.
Yep, that's true.
So it's lessened by that.
You'd have to do some work there. I don't know exactly how that would. I guess at this point, this is one of the things we talked about 10 months ago. We kind of knew what Rick Spielman's tendencies were. He wasn't going to do something like this in the middle of he didn't do this in the middle of the season, right? We don't know what Kwesi's tendencies are. Going into the draft, it was like, oh, does he want to trade back and accumulate picks? Does he want to trade up and take shots?
Right.
At the deadline, will he make a big splash? And the answer so far has been Kwesi is much, much more splashy, it seems like. Rick liked to trade in the draft too, though. But this is a step beyond what Rick would usually have done as Vikings general manager.
That's true. Yeah, because the Moss trade was more, well, Rick orchestrated that trade, but it was more from Childress's say-so.
Yeah.
So
It was
yeah, I
also
feel
a
like
long
once Rick became the ultimate decision maker for the 53-man roster, you're probably right.
Yep. So, all right. Wow. There it is. Vikings.
If
getting
Brandon
splashy.
Cooks has been acquired, we'll be back again today.
We will. Absolutely. Yes. So thanks for hanging out with us here. By the way, if you're new to Purple Daily, welcome. This is Daily Vikings Entertainment, where we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. And we got our merch store open at scorenorth.com/shop. If you want to get some Purple Daily and or Before I Die /Victory Monday swag. Well, we'll see you later today if they make another trade. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow on Purple Daily.